I was 18 that summer, and I remember thinking that 18 felt less like a number and more like a doorway, a thin, invisible line between who I had been and who I was about to become. I didn't know yet that love would be waiting for me on the other side of that line, barefoot, laughing, and dripping wet from a pool. The summer began with heat, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes every breath feel slow and heavy. School had ended, and the days suddenly stretched wide and empty, like a promise that hadn't decided what it would become yet. That was when my friends convinced me to get a summer pass to the aquapark on the edge of town. "It'll be fun," they said. "It'll be memories," they said. "It'll be boys," they whispered, laughing. I rolled my eyes at that last part. I wasn't looking for anyone. At least that's what I told myself. The aquapark was loud, colorful, alive. Water splashed everywhere, music echoed from hidden speakers, and sunlight danced on the surface of every pool like it had a life of its own. It smelled like sunscreen, chlorine, and summer freedom. The first few days blurred together. Slides, lazy rivers, laughter, burned shoulders, cold drinks. It felt like being inside a dream where nothing serious could reach us. And then, one afternoon, I saw him. I was standing near the wave pool, my feet half buried in warm concrete, watching the water rise and fall like a breathing chest. That's when I noticed him, not because he was trying to be noticed, but because he wasn't. He stood a little apart from his friends, sunlight catching in his wet hair, smiling in that quiet way that feels honest. He laughed when someone splashed him, not loudly, but fully, like he meant it. I remember thinking, he looks like Summer. I didn't know his name, I didn't know anything about him, but something inside me shifted, just slightly, like the tide pulling back before a wave. We didn't talk that day, or the next, but the aquapark has a strange way of shrinking the world. Paths cross again and again, pools pull people together, and soon noticing him became a habit. Sometimes I'd see him racing down slides with his friends, sometimes floating on his back in the pool, eyes closed, letting the sun do whatever it wanted to him. Once, our eyes met across the water, and he smiled. Not the kind you give a stranger by accident, but the kind that asks a question without words. I looked away too fast, my heart suddenly loud. By the end of that week, I realized something scared me. I wanted to know him. It happened on a late afternoon, when the sun softened and the crowds thinned. I was sitting at the edge of the main pool, my feet in the water, when someone splashed down nearby. "Sorry," a voice said. I looked up. It was him. Up close, he was even more real. Water ran down his arms, his hair darker from being soaked. His eyes, I noticed then, were warm, the color of deep water before sunset. "It's okay," I said, hoping my voice didn't sound like my heart felt. "I'm Alex," he said, holding out his hand like we weren't both half submerged in a pool. I laughed and took it. "I'm Mia." Our hands touched, and it was such a small thing, but it felt like the beginning of something large. We talked about nothing important, about everything easy. Where we were going after summer, what music we liked, which slide was the scariest. He told me he was 18 too, that he just finished school and felt both excited and terrified about what came next. "I feel like summer is the only time where nothing expects anything from me," he said. I nodded, like we're allowed to just exist. After that, we started spending time together without ever officially deciding to. We met at the aquapark almost every day, sometimes with friends, sometimes just the two of us. We raced down slides, floated side by side in pools, let the lazy river carry us in slow circles while we talked about dreams we hadn't told anyone else yet. evenings became my favorite. When the sun dipped low and painted everything gold, the aquapark felt quieter, more intimate. Music softened, shadows grew long, the water reflected the sky like a secret. We'd sit by the pool, legs touching, pretending not to notice. Sometimes he'd splash water at me just to see me laugh. Sometimes we'd sit in comfortable silence, watching the lights flicker on one by one. One evening, while floating together in the warm pool, he said quietly, "I'm really glad I met you." The water moved gently around us, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. "Me too," I replied. That night, walking home, my skin still smelled like chlorine and summer. My heart felt full and restless at the same time. I didn't know where this was going, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This summer had already changed me, and it had only just begun. After that first real conversation, Alex stopped being just a familiar face at the aquapark. He became a part of my days, quietly, naturally, as if he had always belonged there. We didn't make plans the way normal people did. No messages saying, "Let's meet at 5." We just knew. By noon, I'd start getting ready with the strange certainty that I would see him, and almost every time, I was right. The aquapark felt different when I was with him. The colors were brighter, the laughter sounded closer. Even the cold shock of water sliding down my back felt softer when I knew he'd be there at the bottom, grinning like he'd won something. We started having our rituals. Every morning, we'd race to the tallest slide. He always pretended he wasn't scared, and I always pretended I believed him. In the afternoons, we floated in the lazy river, our arms occasionally brushing, never quite touching for too long. And in the evenings, when the sun began to sink, we claimed the same spot near the pool, slightly hidden, slightly ours. Those evenings were where everything important happened. We talked about our childhoods, about the people we used to be. He told me about his parents, about how they expected him to be confident and strong, even when he wasn't sure he felt that way inside. I told him about my fear of choosing the wrong future, of waking up one day and realizing I had lived someone else's life. "You don't seem like someone who'd disappear into someone else's expectations," he said once. I smiled sadly. "That's because I hide it well." He looked at me for a long moment, like he was memorizing something. "You don't have to hide with me." That sentence stayed with me longer than it should have. Sometimes when our friends were around, I noticed how naturally Alex drifted back to my side, how his laughter softened when he spoke to me, how his eyes searched for me without him even realizing it. And that scared me, because somewhere between the splashing water and golden evenings, I had crossed a line inside myself. I cared. The realization came one afternoon when a girl approached him. She was beautiful in the easy, confident way that made people turn their heads. She laughed loudly, touched his arm when she spoke, leaned in close like she already belonged there. I watched from the edge of the pool, telling myself it didn't matter, but my chest tightened anyway. Alex smiled at her, polite and friendly. They talked for a few minutes. I tried to look away, tried to focus on the water, but my eyes kept finding them. When she finally left, my mood had already shifted. "You okay?" he asked later when he sat beside me. "Yeah," I lied too quickly. He didn't push, but he watched me differently after that, like he knew something had changed, even if neither of us had named it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying moments in my head, his smile, his laugh, the way he said my name. I realized that the idea of him liking someone else hurt more than I wanted to admit, and that's when it became impossible to pretend anymore. The next day, everything felt charged. The air was heavier, the water colder, or maybe it was just me. We spent the afternoon in the pools, close but not touching, talking but not saying what mattered most. Every almost touch felt louder than words. It was evening when the tension finally broke. The aquapark was nearly empty, lights reflected on the water like scattered stars. We were sitting at the edge of the pool, our feet dangling in the warm water. "Mia," he said quietly. I turned to him. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you," his voice careful. My heart started racing. "Okay?" He took a breath. "Do you ever feel like this summer, like it's more than just time passing?" I swallowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, looking at the water, "sometimes it feels like we're standing inside a moment that won't ever happen again." I nodded confirmingly. "I feel that too." He finally looked at me. Our faces were closer than usual, close enough for me to see the tiny droplets of water on his skin. "You don't have to waste it," he said. Neither did I. But fear is a powerful thing. "I don't know what happens after summer," I whispered. He smiled, soft and a little sad. "Neither do I, but I know what's happening right now." The silence between us stretched, heavy with everything we weren't saying. Slowly, almost hesitantly, he reached for my hand. This time, I didn't pull away. His fingers wrapped around mine, warm and steady. Electricity ran up my arm, settling deep in my chest. We didn't kiss, not yet, but the way he held my hand felt just as intimate, just as important, like a promise that didn't need words. From that night on, things shifted. We were still us, still laughing, still playing, still floating in pools under the open sky, but now there was an awareness between us, a quiet understanding that something fragile and beautiful was growing. Sometimes his thumb would brush over my knuckles when we held hands underwater. Sometimes I'd lean my head against his shoulder during late evenings, pretending I was just tired. The world felt smaller, softer, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But summer is never endless, and somewhere in the back of my mind, a quiet voice kept reminding me, nothing this beautiful comes with change. After that evening by the pool, nothing was the same, and yet everything was. Alex and I didn't talk about what we were becoming. We didn't define it, didn't give it a name. We just let it exist, floating between us like warm water, holding us without asking questions. But the closer we grew, the louder my heart became. I noticed the smallest things about him now. The way his smile appeared before he even realized he was smiling. The slight crease between his eyebrows when he was thinking too hard. The way he always waited for me before going down a slide, even when his friends were already running ahead. We touched more. Not obviously, not dramatically, just small, careful touches. His hand on my lower back as we walked, my fingers brushing his arm when I laughed, our knees pressing together when we sat by the pool in the evenings. Every touch felt intentional. Every moment felt like it was balancing on the edge of something. The day of our first kiss arrived quietly, like it didn't want to scare us away. It had been one of the hottest days of the summer, the kind where the sun feels too close, where even the water struggles to cool you down. By late afternoon, most people had left, escaping the heat rather than embracing it. Alex and I stayed. We floated together in one of the smaller pools, the one hidden away from the louder attractions. The water was warm, almost still. The sky above us was slowly turning shades of pink and orange. "Do you ever wish you could stop time?" I asked, staring up at the sky. "All the time," he replied, "but only lately." I smiled, knowing exactly what he meant. We drifted closer without moving, like the water was guiding us. Our shoulders touched, then our arms. His hand found mine beneath the surface, fingers intertwining like it was the most natural thing in the world. I turned my head to look at him. He was already looking at me. There was something different in his eyes, something softer, deeper, almost vulnerable. He lifted his free hand slowly, as if giving me time to stop him. His fingers brushed a strand of wet hair away from my face. "Mia," he said quietly, like my name meant something sacred. My heart was beating so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "Yes?" I whispered. He leaned in just slightly, close enough that I could feel his breath, close enough that the world seemed to hold its breath too. "If this is a mistake," he said, "tell me now." I didn't. Instead, I closed the distance between us. The kiss was gentle, almost shy. Our lips met softly, uncertain at first, like we were both learning something new. His lips were warm, tasting faintly of chlorine and summer air. For a moment, time truly did stop. Then he kissed me back, more confidently this time, his hand resting against my cheek, grounding me. The world faded until there was only the water, the sky, and the feeling of being exactly where I belonged. When we pulled apart, we stayed close, foreheads touching. "That didn't feel like a mistake," he murmured. I smiled, my chest aching in the best way. No, it didn't. From that moment on, everything unfolded quickly and slowly at the same time. We kissed more after that, in the pools, hidden by the water, in quiet corners of the aquapark when no one was watching. Sometimes just quick, stolen kisses, sometimes longer, lingering ones that left my heart racing. But it wasn't just the kisses. It was the way he looked at me afterward, like I was something precious. The way he held my hand more openly now, no longer pretending it was accidental. The way he wrapped his arm around me during late evenings, pulling me closer when the air cooled. I felt lighter, braver, and yet fear crept in quietly, because as August approached, the days started to feel numbered. One evening, we sat by the pool longer than usual, watching the lights note reflect on the water. The air was cooler now, hinting at the end of summer. "What happens when this ends?" I asked softly. He knew what I meant. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he squeezed my hand. "I don't want it to end," he said finally, "but I know summer doesn't ask what we want." I leaned my head against his shoulder. "I'm scared." "Me too," he admitted, "but I'd rather be scared with you than wonder what could have been." His words settled deep inside me. That night, as he walked me home, our fingers still intertwined, I realized something important. Love wasn't just joy, it was courage, and we were standing at the beginning of something beautiful and terrifying. The summer stars watched us silently as we said goodnight, lingering longer than necessary, kissing one last time like we were afraid it might be the last. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both felt it. This love was real, and it was already changing us. After our first kiss, love stopped being something fragile and became something present, tangible, real. Alex wasn't just someone I spent time with anymore. He was someone I missed even when he was only a few steps away. When he laughed, I felt it in my chest. When he looked at me, it was like he saw parts of me I hadn't learned to name yet. We became inseparable. We arrived at the aquapark together, left together, shared towels, shared drinks, shared quiet smiles that needed no explanation. Our friends noticed, of course. They teased us, rolled their eyes affectionately, but we didn't care. We had our own world now. Evenings by the pool became sacred. We would sit close, his arm around me, my head resting against his shoulder. The lights reflected on the water, turning it into something magical, like the surface of a dream we were both afraid to wake up from. Sometimes we talked about nothing at all. Sometimes we talked about everything. "I think I'm scared of the future," I admitted one night. He looked down at me. "Why?" "Because it feels like choosing one path means losing all the others." He nodded slowly. "I feel that too, like we're expected to know who we are already." I traced invisible patterns on his hand. What if we don't? Then we figure it out, he said. Together, if you want. That word, together, stayed with me long after he said it. But as beautiful as everything was, cracks began to form. Not because we stopped loving each other, but because time started asking questions we weren't ready to answer. August was quieter, the days shorter, the air cooler. Alex talked more about leaving for university in another city. I listened, smiled, supported him, and felt something heavy settle inside me every time he mentioned it. I didn't talk much about my own plans. I wasn't sure what they were yet, and I was afraid that uncertainty made me less enough. One afternoon, we argued. It wasn't dramatic, no raised voices, no anger, just truth spoken too soon. "You've been quiet lately," he said, as we sat by the pool. "I'm fine," I replied automatically. He frowned slightly. "You don't have to pretend with me." I sighed. "I'm not pretending." He was quiet for a moment. "Then talk to me." And suddenly, all the fear I'd been holding back spilled out. "I'm scared you'll leave and forget this," my voice trembling. "I'm scared this is just a summer thing for you." His expression changed, hurt flickering across his face. "That's not fair," he said softly. "I know," I whispered, "but it's how I feel." He stood up, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know how to promise the future when I don't even know what it looks like." The silence between us stretched painfully. That night, we didn't walk home together. I cried for the first time that summer, lying in bed, replaying his words, my words, wondering if loving someone meant accepting the possibility of losing them. The next day, I didn't go to the aquapark. Neither did he. It felt wrong, empty. On the third day, I went late in the evening when the sky was already darkening. I didn't expect to see him, but he was there, sitting by the pool, waiting. When he saw me, he stood up immediately. "I'm sorry," before I could speak. I should have listened better. Tears burned my eyes. "I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have questioned what we have." He stepped closer, taking my hands. "This isn't just summer to me." My breath caught. "It's not?" "No," he said firmly. "It's you." I leaned into him, pressing my forehead against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, steady, real. "We don't have to know everything," he whispered. "We just have to be honest." That night, we held each other longer than ever before, like we were trying to memorize the feeling. The days that followed were softer, more intentional. We laughed more gently, kissed more slowly, touched like every moment mattered, because it did. Summer was ending, and love was teaching us something important, that even if time moves forward, what you feel in one moment can shape you forever. The last week of summer arrived without asking permission. The aquapark was quieter now, the laughter softer, the sunlight less intense, as if it too knew it was running out of time. I walked through the gates one afternoon and felt a strange ache in my chest, the kind you feel when you know something beautiful is about to become a memory. Alex was already there, sitting by the pool we always chose. He smiled when he saw me, but there was something different in his eyes, something heavier. We didn't talk much that day. We didn't need to. We floated together in the pools, held hands beneath the water, memorizing each other in silence. Every touch felt deliberate, like we were trying to store the feeling somewhere safe inside ourselves. In the evening, the sky turned the softest shade of gold. "This is our last evening here," I said quietly. "I know," he replied. The words hung between us. We sat at the edge of the pool, our legs brushing. I leaned into him and he wrapped his arms around me without hesitation. His chin rested on top of my head, and for a moment, I let myself believe that nothing beyond this circle of light and water existed. "I leave in 2 days," he said softly. My chest tightened, but I nodded. "I know." I had rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times, the tears, the pain, the fear, but instead there was something else. Acceptance. Not the kind that feels like giving up, but the kind that feels like understanding. "I don't want to say goodbye like it's the end," I said. He kissed my hair, "Then don't." We stood up and walked toward the pool together, hand in hand. The water was warm, comforting. We floated close, foreheads touching, surrounded by reflections of light and sky. "Promise me something," he said. "What?" "Promise you won't forget who you were this summer." I smiled sadly. "I won't. You're part of that." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and kissed me slowly, deeply, like he was pouring every unspoken feeling into that moment. I kissed him back, letting it all exist without fear. When we finally pulled away, neither of us spoke, because some moments are too big for words. The next morning, the aquapark was closed for the season. We didn't go there again. On the day Alex left, we stood at the bus station surrounded by strangers and the noise of life moving forward. His bag rested at his feet. "This isn't goodbye," he said, trying to smile. "It's not," I agreed, "but it still hurt." We hugged for a long time, the kind of hug that carries promises, fear, and love all at once. When he finally let go, he kissed me one last time, softly, carefully. "Thank you for this summer," he whispered. "Thank you for finding me in it," I replied. And then he was gone. The days after felt empty at first, quiet, like the echo after music ends. But slowly, I began to notice something else. I was different, stronger, braver, more honest with myself. Summer had given me love, not the kind that demands forever, but the kind that teaches you who you're capable of being. Sometimes, when I pass the closed gates of the aquapark, I smile. I remember the water, the laughter, the evenings by the pool. I remember him. And I remember the girl I was that summer, 18, fearless, standing at the edge of everything. Love didn't stay, but it changed me. And somehow, that feels like enough.